Brilliant, Edouard. Wonderful to have you with us to talk about Château Rouget. I have a bottle with me. So last year we had to do this on Zoom, and sadly the same again. We look forward to not getting a hat trick up next year and seeing you in at Rouget. So can you tell us a little bit about the 2020 vintage you had at Rouget?
Bonjour Will, bonjour Guy, a pleasure to have you. Hopefully we'll see you very soon in the vineyard. Sharing is caring and wine is made for sharing, so we definitely need to go back to a normal life. Talking about Rouget 2020, well, basically 2020, after all, it's a fantastic vintage, but it's a vintage made for warriors. We had to fight during the wall growing season. We had too much water in spring. We didn't have water during summer. We didn't have a real winter, so it was quite a challenging year. A vintage for vignerons, for viticultural people, for people on the field. Rouget is on the way to be organic, so we had to, and we make some tests to being biodynamics. So we had to fight more than ever, and we are very happy at the end. We basically think that we have achieved our goals, which was to get the good maturity, good balance. The very great realization we are proud of is to have such maturity, such intensity, and with pH down to 3.65. I don't want to be too technical, but with that kind of pH, it's a proof that we have a perception of the acidity and the way to express the acidity. That's a lot of promises for the future. So 2020 and it is very a fantastic vintage. People are asking about the comparison between 18, 19 and 20. Yeah. Some of the guys told me that it's a trilogy. I don't think so. 3 different vintages, 3 different profiles. Really 20 was harder than any other to find. It was clearly a year made for the Merlot, according to Rouget soil. We couldn't achieve our goal on the Cabernet Sauvignon. We planted almost 1 hectare of Cabernet Sauvignon in front of Le Pin on the lieu-dit named Trop Chaud. Trop Chaud means too hot. And really, it was too hot for the Cabernet Sauvignon. So unfortunately, our young babies, because they are only 4 years old, Cabernet Sauvignon couldn't go into a small percentage into Rouget. So it was, a vintage made of excesses. When it was rainy, it was shower. When it was hot, it was tropical. When it was, it was, we had to fight. And I must confess, I was quite worried, more than in Bourgogne, of Rouget, because the excesses of Mother Nature were clearly more impactant for the vineyard than it was anywhere else.
It's interesting that a lot of people have mentioned this idea of water as one of the keys to the 2020 vintage, and whether you had access to a good supply of water reserves. Is that something that you saw in Pomerol, and how did Rouget cope with that?
As you may know, Rouget, we work parcel by parcel, and we pick up parcel by parcel, and we consider the aging of the parcel until the final blend. And clearly you can, I miss you, and I would like to share with you in the cellar to test barrel by barrel how the soil, the constitution of the soil, and the ability to keep the water or not has an impact on the final touch of the wine. And we have plots at the top of the plateau, in front of Vieux Château Certain and Le Pin. And clearly, we have some gravel on the surface, and then we have clay. And those clay have completely played the role to keep the water as much as they can. And down to Rouget, it never goes into Rouget, it goes to Le Carillon de Rouget, our other label. We have some sand, which is great when you have too much water, which is great when you have a difficult vintage. But when it's hot, when it was hot in 2020, clearly those sand soils were not able to restitute the water to the vineyard, and so we had some issues to get the good maturity.
Okay. And roughly in terms of its yield, how big is Rouget in 20, maybe compared to 18 and 19? Is it a similar production?
No, a bit more, a bit less than in 18. Basically, to give you the figures, we were about 37 between 37 and 40 in 18, between 32 to 35 in 19, and we are down to between 30 and 32, depending on the vineyard, in 19. So a bit lower. Clearly, the excesses I told you, and most of all the very hot temperature we had during August clearly give very small berries, a lot of concentration, but not a lot of juices.
Okay. Does that mean you green harvested less than you would do normally, or?
So we don't use any green harvest at Rouget. We do during the start of the growing season. We use we cut the entrecœur. So when you have when the vines are growing, we cut any excess to only keep like 5 to 7 berries per sap per vine, and well, we have quite a difficult work to do, because you make some bets and you make some choices, and you only know that you success or you failed afterwards. It's often too late to try to compensate, and I don't like green harvest, because green harvest for me you will find a compensation of each vine will compensate, because each vine has created a reserve for feeding all the berries. If you cut the berries, even if they are green, your berries will be bigger, more juice, but you will lose all the concentration and so on.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's very sensible. In terms of this different growing season in 2020, you obviously had to adapt a little bit in the vineyard. Was there anything that you needed to adapt in the cellar to change your approach?
Well, that's my Burgundy blood is always surrounding Rouget, so we still use some wall bench fermentation. We went up to 30% on the Merlot. So that was quite high in terms of percentage. My issue regarding the vendange entière is clearly we had a lot of berries that are not completely green, not completely red, that are still a bit green, and so we had clearly to have a stronger, higher selection of the stems that we get. And I think we have a very delicate tannins, so that's the reason why we went down to 25% new oak barrel. And we use vinification intégrale, so that means that we put the berries and the stems sometimes directly into the barrel. And this year I reduced the proportion of this, because I think that because of the delicate delicatesse, the delicate tannins we had, I didn't want to be too oaky, smoky in my wine. So we were more like focused on extracting something more delicate. We knew that we had the maturity. We knew that we had the potential of power, but what we wanted to keep is the finesse, and we wanted to keep the good acidity. So less push down, only one pump over during the full alcoholic fermentation process, but very, very gently. Comparatively, 18 was easier, much easier. 18, everything was obvious. In 20, you had to, not to fight, but to be very cautious in every step of your winemaking process. And right now, even for the racking, we had to rack the wine, only one racking since the harvest. When we racked, it was one of the first years that I wanted to keep a bit of the lees to continue feeding the wine gently, but not too much. I don't want any reduction. And it's been like one of the first year I do so, just to make sure that we keep the DNA of the wine into the barrel.
We tasted two or 3 weeks ago and loved the wine. There was a lovely combination for me of richness, sort of succulence, but also then that freshness of the acidity. So it was very impressive.
It was clearly our point, and it's our new, well, not new, but that's the way I want to Rouget, is we have naturally the power, we have naturally the maturity. Now we have to work more and more on the finesse, and that's the reason why I think that the proportion of Cabernet, whether it's Franc and in the future Sauvignon, and maybe also to pick up a bit earlier to have a better aspect of the acidity. But yeah, as I told you, I think this year with a 3.65, we are one of the very, very few Pomerol with such a low pH. So I'm glad. The wine will need time for sure.
Well, I thought it was a beautiful wine for what it's worth, and it does have that real sense of freshness, which is great. I mean, we're talking to you in May 2021, and obviously it was only a month or just over a month ago that France was hit by some terrible frosts. Can we quickly talk about that at Rouget and also at the other family properties?
Yeah, the early days of April were incredibly hot, with temperatures that were able to go up to 28 degrees Celsius, April 6. So it was incredible. We thought we were in summer. And then we had this cloud, I don't know how to say in English, but like something very, very, very cold that went down to the vineyard. And it was like such a surprise and so intense that temperature went down to -5 to Pomerol. So with all the protection system, I don't like candles. I don't want any candles at Rouget or none of my estates, because I don't think that candles are, more specifically when you have -5 or -10, it doesn't work, and you create only CO2 and you don't create anything else. But all the, how do you say, wind chill? No, wind turbine?
Windmills, the turbines?
Windmills? Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have windmills, so there is a good solidarity in Pomerol, and both Denis Durantou with l'Église Clinay, Jean-Pierre Mouex, Établissement Jean-Pierre Mouex, for all the Mouex family that are our closest neighbors, have some windmills. So we use them, and we were very happy. And we don't. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I prefer to be like this. I think the impact of the frost was only like 5 to 10% on the vineyard that are close to the Barban River. But on the plateau, nobody has to complain. And in comparison of what happened in Burgundy, it's clearly night and day. Pomerol was not in. You can tell at the end that Pomerol was not impacted.
If we go back to Rouget for one last question, we always like to have a slightly more frivolous question, should we say? And this year's one is: if 2020 Rouget were a car, what make and model would it be? And no prizes for guessing that Adam was quite keen on this question.
Oh, that's interesting. Let's see. For me, I'm a car lover, so it's you know what? I think it could be a Porsche. Why? Because it's very powerful, but very reliable. You can do like 100,000 miles without having any problem. I think the potential of Rouget 2020 will be on a very long-term vision, very, very fantastic. And you have great performance, great balance, it's safe. You have the kind of wine that can give you immediate pleasure, even if you're not a wine a huge wine amateur. If you just discover what is Pomerol, what is Rouget, and you can open a bottle in 5, 10, 20 years without any issues, and the wine will still be there.
Brilliant. Well, that's absolutely terrific. And Edouard, we so look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you again for joining us to talk about Rouget 2020. Brilliant.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Connie and Barrow team. Good luck with the reopening and the back to a certain normal life in the UK. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing you very soon in the vineyard, whether in Champagne, Bourgogne, Moulin-à-Vent, or Bordeaux.